Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This morning, we're excited to have Justin Pfenning from Dramco Tool join us. He is the vice president and partner there. Um, we're excited to spend some time with you today for a conversation that we think is both timely and practical in this day and age. A lot of organizations are thinking about talent, how to find it, how to grow it, how do we keep it? There's a lot of turnover out there. So today we're going to be focusing on a slightly different approach. What it looks like when an employer stops waiting and decides to do something about it and start building it. So we're joined with, like I mentioned, with Justin Pfenning. Justin, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we're really looking forward to this conversation. And this is my first time meeting you in person. We've been in touch over email. And thanks so much for joining the fun that Michaela and I have on whenever we get together with great people around the state. But can you take us back to 2017, where apprenticeships, they weren't widely adopted yet. And I'd argue that we're still kind of slow on the adoption curve here in Nebraska, unfortunately, but we're making progress. But
Yeah,
especially at the high school level. But can you tell us what made your team decide to do it anyway at that time?
yeah, for sure. So, kind of going back prior to 2017, Dramco really since its inception has developed employees through part-time work and summer work. When I was hired here in 1989, that was my role. I was just a part-time weekend and evening employee. And it got me into the shop and it got me kind of exposed to what went on in a tool and die shop. Prior to 2017, it was an unofficial arrangement, and that limited us a little bit because we had to wait for candidates that were 18 years old or older. So when that opportunity for a registered apprenticeship opened up to us and was presented to us, we knew it'd be a good way to bolster our system, the system that we already had in place. So,
Awesome. So tell me, like, what problems or challenges were you seeing at that time that made you feel like this was a necessary tool to utilize?
yeah, so we had basically two problems. One was as I mentioned, the 18-year-old thing. We'd have candidates that would come to us and they would maybe be 16 or 17 years old, and we'd have to tell them, gosh, we think you're great. We really would love to have you here at Dramco, but you got to be 18. So come back and see us in 2 years. And then you struggle to stay connected with those
Yep.
individuals over that year or 2 years, and maybe their lives change or their interests kind of change a little bit. And so it was really hard to keep them, kind of under the umbrella until they got to 18 years old. So that one thing that helped us there was having access to those students prior to 18 years old. The other thing was just the lack of a consistent pipeline of candidates. That was obviously a big problem for us, and when we were able to enter the registered apprenticeship and continue our relationship with CPI, that made a dramatic difference for us. So.
I want to add a piece to that. I agree with that completely. One, we have a really tough time keeping track of our students after they leave too. So I understand when you say if you can't get them, then trying to stay in touch with them can be challenging. But that the piece of that is with the apprenticeship program, for those of you that are new to it or don't know, the tool that the apprenticeship program will put in place for the employer, for the school, and for the apprentice is that it's a safety net. So a lot of times employers can't insure or can't have those kids for legal purposes, like you mentioned, under the age of 18. That's what this tool does for employers, is allows them to be able to bring in under the age of 18, usually at 16. We typically do it the end of their junior year. That summer before they go into the senior year is when our apprentices typically start. So that's what that tool will do for businesses, is allow you to be able to, and not in all cases, but in many, a lot that we weren't able to previously do, we're able to now, situations such like Dramco as well. So when you say that you built this from the ground up, what did that actually, or what were the first few decisions that really mattered in getting it off the ground for you?
Well, you know, like I mentioned, we kind of been doing it unofficially for quite a while. And in those early days, we just really relied on word of mouth. Maybe an existing employee had a neighbor kid or a friend that had a kid that was interested in a summer job, and so that was kind of our development path, I guess, at that point. On a rare occasion, a student might reach out with interest, and that was kind of the way we developed those individuals. Once the manufacturing pathway was established at Grand Island Senior High, we could generate interest with tours and opportunities to meet those students. And so really it was just, a refinement of our process after we were, after Grand Island Senior High added those pathway options. That was really where we started to refine our process and really get a solid foundation on this.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And then so building on that, like what were some of the first few decisions that helped get things off the ground for you guys?
So, it was a learning process for us for sure, and it still is. The thing we realized early on is that the skill level of individuals varies dramatically. And especially when you're talking about 16, 17, and 18-year-old students, there's a lot of maturing, there's a lot of life experience that happens in those years. And so we really figured out that we needed to tailor the work to the individual and let them grow kind of at their own pace. And that was, the first decision, I guess, was just not expecting too much from the individual, just letting them get in here and get into our system. So
I So I was actually out at Dramco on Tuesday and kind of felt like we were having a little bit of a reunion. We all of them started coming out and we got to just sit and chat with them for a little bit. But I think the businesses like Dramco that are doing it right is going up off of what you said is they are kids. They are there's a big learning curve there. There's some immaturity there. Both there's a bit of a mentoring piece too. And when I say that, I don't just mean from the learning the skill sets that are needed while they're working. It's home life. It's trying to make sure that they're staying caught up on school. And the businesses that do those pieces well and are willing to kind of mentor those kids are the ones that I think the biggest successes is where we see it. I always say with my own kids, it takes a village to raise them, right? Like it isn't just me, it's educators,
yeah.
it's people out in the community, it's all the things. And so the businesses that are willing to do that little bit extra, I think are the ones that we find the biggest successes and wins with for sure.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
From the business side, how has this changed the way that you think about hiring or developing your talent?
So we're always in a hiring mode. I'm going to say I've worked here since 1990, and we are always probably outside of maybe 2 years. We're always in a hiring mode. We're always in a growth mode. And so this is just one of the strategies that we use to continue to grow. That's really the basis of it all is just trying to get those students in the door, get them interested, help them understand what manufacturing looks like, because it is kind of maybe the parents and the grandparents for sure have a little bit of a different opinion of what manufacturing looks like, and it's much, much different maybe than what those stereotypes, would lead you to believe. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just I love this series of questions. They're like building on each other, which is so helpful. But what does the experience look like for students once they're in your program?
So, like I said, we really try and tailor the work to the individual. And sometimes that means the job's just primarily cleaning machines and sweeping the floors and hauling trash and, doing some of those remedial things that we just need to have done every day. You don't realize until no one's dumping the trash how big of a deal that is. It's certainly not less critical to our success. That stuff needs to happen every day. And for some students, that's the right way to start because it's an easy entry into the job that weren't, they're not, it's not a super demanding ask or anything like that. And then they can kind of gradually float into other things. It's just it's always surprising to me how when you see these students come in and they start to learn everybody's name and they kind of understand what the culture's like and what the work schedule's like and they really kind of start to settle in and do what they want to do what they come to do and unknowingly I think at the start they just see all these different things around them um, that they're kind of exposed to, whether it's machining or whatever it is. And then they go back to class and they maybe learn something that's aligned with that, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly how this works. I know, I've seen this." So it's that real world application, I believe, allows those students to not only, understand those concepts as they're taught to them, but I think it really allows them to excel too. And it's a cool thing. And you really see when they start to get interested in it. Um, they'll be over cleaning or dumping trash in an area and they'll ask somebody, "Hey, tell me about what you're doing here." And then, and so then they kind of get that little back and forth it's really is a cool thing. We really like it. So, yeah.
You know what I love too is I think that a student who can sweep the floor as well as like do more technical, high impact work, there's something really special about those types of employees in general who will just do whatever it takes, you know?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And it goes to the point that in 2 years, when they're a full-time employee and someone else is sweeping the floor and they're maybe cutting a corner and not doing the job quite so well, they can say, "Listen, I know how to do that job. Go back and do that better."
Yeah.
It's that accountability thing. I think you mentioned it, Michaela, with the mentorship. That's really what it is. It's holding those students accountable and making them understand what the expectation is. So, yeah.
Absolutely. For those of you joining us today, I think that there's one important piece to this. The reason that we wanted Justin to join us today is because one, he's kind of an innovative thinker, and I've known him for a lot of years. But Dramco is actually the very first business in the state of Nebraska to have a high school intern back in 2017. So they've kind of led the way for all of those that have come after. I would even tell you at that time, at post-secondary collegiate level, there were very few, if any, apprenticeships occurring. So to have done it at a high school level has been a pretty special process to watch kind of happen over the years. So with that, I would like to ask you, how did the partnership with Career Pathways Institute come along, and how did we kind of come together with this?
So, I think I might have mentioned, if not, I'll say it again. I graduated from Gish, and I spent a lot of time in the vocational wing of the school in my high school years. Took metal shop, took auto shop, took plastics, and so that kind of vocational aspect of it has really always kind of been my trajectory, I guess. I can't necessarily say that I had the vision of seeing what I'm going to do, what I do today then, but I don't think probably any of us at 16 or 17 probably have that clarity. But so that was really that, I was really acquainted with that area of Gish. That was kind of where I lived in that 400 wing. But so that was always really near and dear to me. I had a great metals teacher, Dave Klemick, he gave me a really solid introduction to welding and machining. And probably as I look back now, I see character development was probably his biggest challenge with me, maybe. But he did a fantastic job, and he really kind of got me on that trajectory. And I kind of always stayed in contact with him after graduation, just loosely. And as this career pathway thing kind of got introduced by Dr. Joel many, many years ago, Dramco was fortunate enough to be invited to participate in some roundtable discussions. We had already kind of had this, loosely, unofficially had this mentorship thing going. And so we jumped at the opportunity to participate in that. And I mean, it's just blossomed into this, really, really incredible thing that I think gives students an excellent opportunity to pursue the path that fits them the best, that they feel fits them the best. And we've just tried to remain connected and supportive of CPI through the years. Doing what we can, participating on advisory boards and giving tours and talking to the students just to try and keep that interest and keep that kind of magic alive. So
Absolutely. I get to see a lot of magical things happen in kids that there's so many different types of learners. And during my time here, I think that's became more and more evident to me when you see it click for them. Sometimes that type of learning helps them make sure that they're staying up on the rest of theirs because it's all kind of goes together. So
yeah.
For the organizations and businesses that are listening, they're curious but unsure where they can begin. What's the first practical step in them to get started?
Great question. Really, I would just say start slow, but get started. Really, that's the best way to approach it. Don't take on 5 students, just maybe one or maybe two, and just kind of start slow and find your way. Like I say, there's really no set plan, and even the plan that we have now, it just varies from student to student depending on their skill level and their individual drive, maybe is the right word. Um, you know, Obviously working with career pathways to understand those pathways is the very first step. And then just, find a student and get started. It really is a great process and it's been fantastic for us.
Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna go off script a little bit. Justin, I apologize. This is kind of
All
part
right.
of what we do sometimes. But not next week is National Apprenticeship Week, which is super exciting. And Department of Labor, Nebraska's Department of Labor just released a report yesterday that said some large number, it was greater than 50%. I won't quote it exactly, but some number greater than 50% of employers don't think that apprenticeships apply to their industry. And I know that that's pretty common. We hear it about internships as well. But can you talk to us about, oh, one other piece of this is hiring has slowed down tremendously, as you know, just across the state, across industries for a variety of reasons. But why is it important to invest in talent anyway, even in an economic like slowdown, all of that?
I love that.
So I'll throw out a few thoughts on that. The first one is, anybody who's hiring knows there's this kind of um, background thing where if you want to get 3, you're going to have to hire 5 or 6. There's this ratio, I guess, and it doesn't maybe as apply quite so much to Dramco because we are looking for such a specific individual, but anybody that can develop that talent, that can take that part-time person in and kind of take them under their wing and show them what the work is about, and show them what the end goal is. We have a really high conversion rate on our apprentices to full-time employees, and when they become full-time employees, they typically don't leave. I'm going to knock on wood somewhere very quickly here, but it's, to me, that's where that's the payoff on that talent development piece that you just mentioned is, when you find those students that are interested and you bring them in and you develop them, they really stay. They kind of want to stay. Like I say, we don't have 100% conversion rate, but our conversion rate is really high. And Michaela knows, she just said it, it's like a reunion when you walk through here because there's so many students that have went through that path. I think our 2 oldest apprentices that we had or that have been here the longest, I think they're going to be celebrating their 10th or 11th year at Dramco now. And I fully expect them. They like their jobs. They're married now. Some of them have families. I don't. I don't expect them to leave. And those are the folks that we want, you know. Everybody wants, right? No one wants to hire five to get two because all that training and expense is it's a lot. It's a lot of expense to onboard someone and train them just to have them, you know, kind of flake out and change jobs or stop showing up or whatever the situation is. When that's truly I think the payoff with this is you get a chance to learn what the student's about. The student gets a chance to learn what you're about. It's not always a right fit, right? It's not always a right fit on both sides of the coin. But when it is, those folks are typically here for the long haul. And that's what's really great is you get to create those relationships. You kind of get to test out how it's going to work. And if it's not right, that's okay too. But that that investment is a drop in the bucket compared to, you know, just trying to take as many people in the door as you can and hope you can find a needle in a haystack. So,
Sure.
Absolutely. I sometimes think that we hear a lot, young people don't want to work. And gosh, my husband and I also own a business in the trades, and it's not a young people thing. There has been a shift. So I think honestly, young people, if we can take them into a place that has a good culture, has a training program such as yours, I think that they have the ability to learn and mold into becoming really good employees. When you've got it in full-grown adults, I think it's harder because
yeah,
once those thought processes, choices are established, it's a whole lot harder to pivot. So
yep,
sometimes I think young people get a bit of a bad rap, and I don't think it's all
yeah,
warranted.
yeah. No, I would 100% agree. Um, you know, we've you know, you see them. I mean, we get some great students in here. I mean, they show up, they work hard when they're here. They're a pleasure to be around, you know. It you know, it's like anything. There's good and bad in every demographic or every generation. But yeah, I think they're great. I think they're absolutely great. So and they're super technical, right? They're
Yeah.
very technically savvy. So the things that, you know, it's kind of like this, it's kind of like this shift, you know. I'm old, right? So I'm less technically savvy, but more put your head down and get the work done. And so you just have to understand how to harness that technically savvy brain and then mentor them so that they understand what the expectation is. And if, you know, you'd be surprised what they can accomplish when you approach it that way. So,
Sure. Well, I know we want to leave a couple minutes for questions, and we'll just keep monitoring the chat, but we have a couple of backup questions we'll roll into here while we're waiting for questions to show up. So the first one is, we kind of talked about it a little bit a moment ago, but what are additional misconceptions people might have about youth apprenticeships, like the model, or even working with young people that you want to clear up?
so I think probably our biggest concern when we were making the transition to this formalized apprenticeship program was that there was going to be a lot of administrative work involved with it. And it really isn't. I mean, we put a little bit of work in on the front end, but I mean, we're not talking about anything of significance at all. And really, the folks, Mr. Hawley, and everybody at CPI, Michaela, they really make it as easy as they possibly can be. And you know, it's really not much more than just hiring an individual and having them come in and go to work. And I think there's a lot of background stuff that happens that maybe we don't necessarily get pulled into, but it's really seamless and it's not a big lift from an administrative standpoint. So,
I would add to that from our perspective, it's truly, I don't even think on our side it is. So what I would tell you that we try to do from our side, both for the business and for the apprentice, is make sure that there's a continual communication touch point. So that looks like us. We're obviously checking up on them in the classrooms, make sure that they're meeting the expectations that they need to be meeting there. I would say these apprentices typically, very rarely do I run into an issue that they aren't holding their own in the classroom, because if they aren't holding their own in the classroom, they're not going to be having the opportunity on the apprenticeship side of things. So I think that the two go together really, really well, but we are obviously watching them on the classroom side of things. And then between Mr. Holly and I, and sometimes together, we go out and we visit the apprentices 3 to 4 times. We check in, let the employer know that we're coming. If the employer's there and wants to visit with us, they absolutely can be. By the time we get to the third and fourth visit, typically we know where they're located at, and we kind of go in and take our safety glasses in and go and visit with the students. And if the supervisor's there, we visit with them too. But it's just that. It's just stopping out to see them. The employers know that they can reach out to us at any given point if any concerns would arise. We absolutely will handle those and kind of try to work through them if we can. I'm not going to tell you that we've never had apprentices that haven't made it all the way through the program. I think that number is maybe 2, actually. So very, very low. Typically, like I said, that's something that motivates them to do what they need to be doing. So I think the program is exceptional. They're paid. They're paid to go out and do this while they're doing it. It's a foot in the door for them. Like Justin said, when I was out there, I think we talked to 6 while I was there. Not all of those that are there were former apprentices. They've gone through the program and then ended up going to Dramco to work. But that was just in the 30 minutes time that I was in the door on Tuesday. So that to me says something. And my husband and I have former automotive students as well. So it can be a really beautiful, beautiful thing between what they're learning in the classroom to putting it to good use out in the workforce. And most importantly, we're retaining our talent here in the area, which I think that we've not done as a state, and even as in this area for a long time, we were really not doing a good job on. So I think that we've got to be better. And the best thing that we can do is bridge the gap between what they're learning on the education side and what's happening out in the business side of things. Let's bridge that gap. We say that we've got these students learning these things, but if we aren't getting them out to the business side of thing, we're really missing the whole point of what it is that we're trying to do. So bridging that gap to me has been a really important thing. And I absolutely am blessed to be doing what I'm doing today. I love it. So.
Yeah, I would add on to that. I mean, I would applaud you guys at every possible opportunity because the focus of a lot of those pathways are these vocational careers that we're dying for. I mean, I said since 1990, there's probably only been 2 years where we weren't hiring. And if somebody good came through the door, we would absolutely hire them. That's the vacuum of that we feel with people. I mean, we would hire 10 people right now if they walked through the door. I mean, that's our situation. Is we're just so tight on talent that we have to do it. I mean, it's a great thing. I enjoy it. It's been fantastic for us, but we can't stop. We have to continue to do it. And anybody who's tried to get their car fixed or tried to hire a plumber or tried to hire an electrician, they all feel that tightness in that market. And I truly believe, and I'm this kid, right? I spent as much time as possible in that vocational wing at Grand Island Senior High because that's where I fit. That's where I felt like it was right for me. In shining the light the way Career Pathways does on these vocational jobs, it kind of removes that stigma that, oh man, you should probably just go to the University of Nebraska instead of, if you really like, working with your hands, maybe you'd be a good plumber. Or I mean, it kind of elevates those vocational jobs to that status that they should be. And like I say, anybody who's tried to get their car fixed or hire a plumber knows it's tough. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, auto mechanics, diesel mechanics, machine, tool and die. I mean, those everywhere is just dying for people. So I think, the more we can capture those students that have that interest and grow them, the better it's going to be for everyone. So
That's awesome. And I'm not seeing any questions, but I wanted to ask you, Justin, would you be okay if we shared your contact info with people who are like really curious about starting a program and want to talk to someone who has a lot
yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do
Yeah.
that. But thank you so much. And any final thoughts for the folks listening?
I don't think so. I appreciate you guys reaching out to me and giving me this opportunity to talk about this. Hopefully it sparks some interest in other businesses, whether it's Grand Island or across the state. And let's hang on to these students, and let's help them become successful at something that they love to do. So
Definitely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Okay.
Justin.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Bye, all.
Bye.